All right, here we are again with another mid-month update. I know we neglected to cover the end of March, but that's just because there wasn't too much happening, to be honest. So this is going to cover from mid-March to what is now mid-April. Um, all in all, April still relatively slow in terms of political developments, I think. So why don't you just lay
Yeah,
it out? Whatever the small shit that's happened since the start of the month.
yeah. Maybe the most important thing to look for right now is the reshuffling in Chongqing. Like what we're seeing, and it's not really perceptible unless you look at the slightly larger picture. But the way people are being arranged right now, it seems that either the central government or some local individuals are preparing their exit out of the municipality, which is a good and bad sign at the same time because we're still like more than a year away from 2022 in terms of like a party congress in October. So yeah, that's quite a long while to be preparing an exit because like you and I'm referring here to Chen Min-er, for example, like you will not be promoted right away. So there's like a taste of anxiety, if you will. Like people are getting anxious or something, but there's definitely some preparation happening in the officialdom. Like the rotation has been accelerated, and we already can see who will be the next party secretary and potentially the next mayor. So now we're wondering, why is this happening that early on? And my answer to that would probably be because Chen is a little bit anxious, potentially, potentially. Because again, we're far from 2022, and trying to move that fast right now doesn't look very good, especially when you think about uh, what we've talked about yesterday, the successor's dilemma. So if you make too many moves, the reaction you might get from the leader is not necessarily good. You need to be a good potential successor. You need to be neutral. You need to follow. You need to do as you're told. And if you become too vocal or anxious, which is not really good, this might push the leader to constrain you, as you've seen in the diagram of the prisoner's dilemma I drew up for you. So yeah, so if there's anxiety right now, this should be toned down because we're so close to the end, technically. So starting to move or being vocal right now or to being arrogant with one's position is definitely ill-advised because we could see potentially a like a Lin Biao scenario, like becoming suddenly very arrogant and very sure that, oh yeah, I'm definitely the follower, and then suddenly whoops, he just disappear. So yeah, I'll be careful with that. Or as Song Jung-tai scenario, whoops, suddenly falling under investigation. Although to be fair, I don't think that would happen here, but it definitely doesn't look like there's something unclear about how the situation is unfolding.
Do you think
And
that do you
yeah,
think that's because of the lack of forward guidance by the standing committee?
well,
Or I guess
it has to be a little, but the problem is, and you've seen the squares, and the problem is you can enable someone so much uh, up until the point that you paint a target on their backs. So, and this is exactly what happened to Hu Jintao in the 90s. So you want to empower the person, but at the same time, you cannot do it too much. So the successor or potential successor is left, like you said, not really guided. Like he doesn't really know where he's going. And I think this is what we're feeling right now. And there might also be something else lurking behind, like just below the surface, which could potentially be um, the fact that if she takes a third term, uh, Chen Min-er could be general secretary or even premier, although he's not favored for that because economic performance wise, with what we've seen in Guizhou, I mean, we'll pass on that. like the Dushan County story I'm referring to. Anyway, so if this happens, it means that it would need additional like chaperoning, and that could be explained by the fact that this is something I think we've been saying since the absolute beginning. Like the allies, the pool of allies is very, let's say, is very large but very shallow, and I think if Chen would be to succeed Xi in 2022, the problem would be like he has no real network to rely upon. So that will probably be an issue. Like you're looking at a Hua Guofeng scenario here, and you definitely don't want that to happen.
Yeah, it seems their roster of potential talent is running incredibly thin. I think apart from maybe a few uh, state level kind of offices, I'm thinking like central bank, maybe the regulatory. I think the regulatory authorities probably have the best talent among the
Yeah, but you're
total
talking about the
roster.
reformers. You're talking about the reformers. You're talking about Wang Qishan.
Yeah. But I mean the shit that like the ministries like foreign affairs, foreign
Oh
ministry
no! Oh
nightmare.
no! This is yeah. Yeah, I said that recently. Like this is actually a good point, and people were like, are you really sure? And you don't think that's a bit big to say that? It was like, no, no, it's not. They actually are clueless on what to do with this ministry. Like it serves literally no purpose except staffing, building overseas. Like, calm down. To be fair, it's just a very, very, let's say, how would I say that without being too, I would say, a very oddly structured extended propaganda apparatus. Let's put it this way. I would, yeah, something like that. It serves no purpose. They have no clue what to do with it. They have no clue what to do with Wang Yi. Like he's still there. He should have been replaced years ago, and he's still there. They have no clue, and this is not very good. But again, like you said, like Wang Qishan played the game right, and he positioned a lot of people. He has a strong following, just like people like Li Zhanshu, for example, and to a certain degree, maybe Zhao Leji, maybe, and Liu He, because like at this time and maybe mentoring younger economists through forums and stuff like this, you can see some of them, sure, but as soon as you go down to less involved party players, like most likely like the provincial elites, uh, like you look at Li Xi, Chen Ming'er, or Cai Qi, people like that, like they have no networks. And I've been saying that since the beginning. Like you can say whatever you want about Jiang Zemin, but he was extremely good at being decentralized and creating massive extended networks. Like you can say whatever you like, but dismantling his shit was absolutely, it was a nightmare. And when you think about, okay, how would you dismantle someone like Li Xi in Guangdong? You wouldn't even have to try. Like you would just need to remove the guy. That would just be that. It would be sufficient. But like because you still have like the local, the Hakka gang, the Kejia Bang, like you still have those people there. They're just waiting for their time. So you remove that guy, and that's gone. And that's a big problem for the last, let's say, what, like 16, 18 months or something like that. Yeah.
So is there a danger that we see, 2022 moving forward, let's say for the next decade, where nothing really happens simply because a lack of like a really shallow talent pool and people are largely incapable of pushing things forward, or even worse, like they have no idea what they're doing and they're just simply holding on to positions for the sake of holding on to positions.
Well, what we're seeing right now is already signs of like slightly being clueless and not really sure where to find talent. Like you change people in Gansu for people in Henan just because you want to free up some space. That's political thinking. That's a maneuver. That's not thinking like we need someone to actually do something and run the economy, or pull out Gansu out of poverty. Like you're not thinking about that, and this is not very good in the long run. So the talent pool is dramatically, I would say, not necessarily underwhelming, but underused, because there has to be people that can do the job, but they're just not being used. And now it's all about a game of loyalty. Who can implement ideology better? And again, that leads nowhere for economic development, provision of social goods, and etc. It leads absolutely nowhere. So, in a few years from now, if they don't clear up that shit, it's gonna be complicated to find good governors, good deputies, good ministers. Although, to be fair, ministers have suffered probably the less of the, let's say, the ongoing, how would you call that? Like, like the rectification. rectification. And I think this is something that she learned from Liu Shaoqi. Like, you cannot screw the administration if you need to mobilize the structure. You need to keep it somewhat intact.
Okay, so to what extent then is like are there people half a generation down, 1 generation down, 1.5 generation down that look somewhat competent, and it's just a matter of time for the turnovers to occur so that the machine can start running again?
Well, there are pretty good ones upcoming, especially like if you talk generation wise, you're talking about let's say end of the sixth generation, so 1968, 1969, and early 1970s. So you have a very good pool, like very strong candidates. As of yet, most of them are still very underused, or they're positioned in places that, let's say, have little effect on what it should be. Unless you're talking about like the financial deputies that we send in province to fix financial things, but most of these people have been either mentored or arranged through Wang Qishan and Liu He. So it's a different class of cadres or officials, if you want. So as of yet, talent is not really being sought out. It exists, but ideology dominates still. Or it's about politics, and sometimes Xi Jinping seems to prefer to have a lose-lose situation rather than having a slight loss or a slight victory over others. He prefers sometimes to nominate people that are very, let's say, interesting or very suboptimal, to say the least. And I'm always thinking about when was the dude like Ren Zhenghe. Yeah, that dude, like there's already like massive stories of corruption on that dude, and he's been promoted, and nobody really understands why, because his track shows that he's not good. But I think it was preferred to have a lose-lose situation rather than give an inch to the others. And I understand that if you want to be the sole game in town, you need to play harsh. but for the sake of stability, this is not good.
So okay, then the next question is like, has like the hyper politicization of the party state made it so that because what you're really looking for is talent in the general population, but to what extent are the SOE type kind of entities sucking talent away from what could otherwise be passed along in the wider party or state apparatuses? Like is the semi-private or state-owned SOE sector, are they sucking up talent because now it seems like the political scene is just such a shit show? So like, why? I could get paid more doing other things. I don't have to be involved in all these potentially career-ending or if not life-ending kind of problems. Like, is that sector sucking up a lot of the talent?
If you had to choose one sector that actually is preserving talent, it's the one you mentioned before. It's finance and banking. Like, they're pretty good, and regulatory. Like, they're pretty good at keeping talent somewhat intact. I mean, whatever that means in that context. But if you look at SOEs, I would say Not really, because what we're seeing is that some leaders of SOEs are being transferred to provincial governments, which doesn't really help in terms of like making the economy run, and could actually cause more corruption. If I mean that's kind of fair. So sucking talent away, I mean it could be, but if you look at like their track records of people in these industries, still most of them have low, let's say, have a low political experience, especially like prefectural or provincial level. Like most of them have dabbed in the clerk level or maybe like the county level a little bit sometimes, but then they engage into SOEs or private enterprise, and then they don't really go back to the politics. So were these people better? I mean, could be, maybe. We'll never really know, but it's always a possibility considering the fact that when people are looking at career perspective in the party state apparatus, I mean, like, do you really, especially with the new like debt law, like, do you really want to be tied to this? Like, if you build one bridge too many, bro, one bridge too many, and then it's a stain on your record forever, and you can be jailed.
So with more of these kind of like foreign financial institutions moving in, I think there's a risk that these foreign financial firms, because let's be real, if you're Goldman Sachs, you can offer a salary that no Chinese institution can offer. That's a fact.
But there's
Like,
also a light possibility that they will do what foreign companies were doing in the 90s, offering local level salaries like embassies still do today, by the way.
yeah, but what I mean, like, you like they could, if they wanted to, they have the ability to just drain the living shit out of the existing talent pool in China.
Oh, absolutely. No questions asked.
Because lest we forget, if I go to Goldman Sachs, I don't need to be a bank teller for a year as opposed to going to a state-owned bank. You know what I mean? Like,
was it just 1 year or more than that?
It's. I believe it was 1 year. I believe it was 1 year. They call it grassroots training, bro.
Bro, it has to be. It has to be. You need to go through that. Understand the people, bro. Like you don't know anything.
Well, that's what I mean. The incentives that can be offered by any foreign financial institution in particular, like, oh man, it's going to be tough for the local Chinese financial institutions to compete on that front.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to rain on your parade here by putting a massive boulder of salt on the talent pool, especially on the word talent.
Yeah,
because, yeah, I think you know what I mean. Because like
the word talent is earmarked to whatever is presently available. So
okay, yeah, okay. If that's what you mean, then we're good. Because if you mean like talent, as in exceptional candidates, I mean talent for talent's sake in China can be recycled, but if you take in account international standard, the word talent doesn't really apply for lots of things. And with the new changes in education coming full steam, it's going to be even more complicated to find people who can speak English in the upcoming years.
Yeah, and it's good to let people know that every time you see a Chinese student who studied abroad return to China, it's because they couldn't make it in the West. That's a fact. Because if they were good enough, they would have stayed. And I don't believe all these like Silicon Valley people were like, oh yeah, I chose, I was working at Google, but I chose to go back to China. I was like, why?
Well, I mean, there is some reason, but at the same time, it comes with such a steep downside.
Yeah,
like there is an upside there. There's an upside like that. There is an upside, but the downside is so massive.
You can't, if you come back from abroad, you can't be let into the system. So you're effectively barred from any kind of political clout you might have because you're just going to be you can't. Right? As far as I know, that rule still stands.
It still stands.
So anyways, point being is that the talent, whatever there is on the mainland, is undiscernible at the moment.
Yeah, it's a tough situation because, like, although maybe scientifically you might, because maybe some sectors have very strong talent, just like in the USSR had like mathematicians and scientific, like, okay, potentially that's true, but anything else would be complicated because don't forget we're just 1.5 generation away from the people who learned Soviet economics. Just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind.
Oh man.
Don't forget, I think it was like Zhang Dejiang or Zhang Gaoli who actually went to study in the Kim Il Sung University, and yeah, he studied economics. So, you know, ooh,
It's a wonder the post Mao era didn't fuck everything up. To be honest, like all the people that got educated in the fucking USSR, like, oh
they
man.
heavily relied on just the core, like core people. So,
Well, okay. Let's shift gears and talk about some stuff on the ground. Because
bro,
apparently the our favorite issue of real estate is coming back into view. Um, I can't remember if it was last month or when, but one of China's larger property developers defaulted on I can't remember how much, uh, maybe a billion worth of U.S. bonds. Anyways,
it was
so
pretty substantial.
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Point being, I think real estate and the subsequent bubbles following that sector have driven a lot of Chinese recovery in the post pandemic timeline. And I think the cracks are starting to show. You got the deputy housing minister who is calling on several. I think there maybe there's one tier one city. Hold on, let me check my notes, but I think it's mostly tier one, tier two cities telling them to rein in some cooling measures to make sure real estate stays somewhat manageable at least.
I think that would apply mainly to like I think Shanghai because it was again recently stated to be the most expensive city in Asia. I think
Oh yeah,
it just dethroned the Hong Kong a few days ago.
yeah, but it's not really fair given what Hong Kong's been through. But okay, so the cities are Guangzhou,
God
Hefei,
damn.
Ningbo, Dongguan, and Nantong. So is Guangzhou a tier one city?
Uh, I mean, it's in between because technically tier one are only large municipalities. Technically,
Okay, so all
technically.
right, whatever, a 1.5, and then Hefei is tier two.
Yeah, you see, I don't understand why Hefei is in there because, like, let's face the facts here. Let's face the facts. Like, bro, and a lot of funds have a foothold in Hefei for an unknown reason, by the way. And except lumbering and wood, like I'm not quite sure. But like Hefei, yeah, I mean it could be, but Hefei is tier three, not tier two. It's tier three.
Okay, Ningbo,
'Cause it's for
Dongguan.
yeah, Ningbo would be tier two around. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Dongguan is
No,
tough.
Dongguan is no, it's tier three or maybe less.
And Nantong.
Nantong is also tier three or potentially a bit lower.
Yeah, so if they're telling these kind of like lower tier cities to cool down their measures, I can only imagine what it's like in like fucking Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, all that good jazz. But
You remember like a few months ago we saw the prices of the real estate in Tianjin was like massively crashing,
was
like
it when
on a
they're
year per year
triggered?
basis. Yeah, it's been a while, but I showed you a graph like the year per year basis. I think they were down like 20 to 40% in some districts.
I mean, good. Tianjin fucking sucks. There's no reason to live in Tianjin.
Of course, there is no to eat to eat.
That's about it. That's all they have. They don't have anything else.
Well, you can say that about most cities anyway.
No, but Tianjin doesn't really have any cultural or historical shit, right? It's just
All right, hold that thought. Hold that thought.
what's
Come
there,
on.
bro.
You're putting me on the spot, but I'm sure I could come up with something.
Bro, all I know is they make good jianbing. That's it.
That's very fair.
Bro, it was like going to Macau for the egg tarts. That's it. Nothing else to go there for.
Oh, except there's one difference because like in Macau you can taste the sadness, but not in Tianjin.
Tianjin's relatively better. Okay,
Yeah,
so on top of that, the CBIRC, the banking and insurance regulator, said that what was it like approximately like 518 million US dollars worth of business and consumer loans have been misappropriated for use in Shanghai's property market. So,
as expected.
I mean, this is nothing new. For some reason, they're finally disclosing this now. I think everybody knows that once you issue a loan in China, it goes into the ether.
Oh my god, it's like yeah, and to be fair, they said like what like half a trillion. So like this is actually only the assets that they were able to track. Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way.
I mean,
it could be much more than that. And to be fair, if it was, they probably wouldn't say it.
Yeah, check it out. The cases included the use of personal and corporate business or consumer loans as payments or down payment for houses. Of course.
This is so good.
Of course. So good. And the best part is, like, I feel like the banks are going to get punished for this.
Probably, but at the same time, do they really have a choice but to fuel the real estate system?
I mean, given that these things cost steel and cement, I feel like that's a natural cycle to be built.
So you see, exactly. So you see, like the problem is that now it's starting to be funneled by like secondary non-existing money, and this is where the problem become heavy because when defaults arrive, this will crumble down so hard.
And on that, I think we can talk about the thing that I think this came out like yesterday, right? Where they say basically like local level cadres will be held accountable for the rest of their lives if the debt they raise during their terms is found to be problematic. Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one because this necessarily implicates the entire political system.
Yeah, and I don't understand because like when I saw that yesterday when you showed me, I was like, bro, like this is unreal. And this reminded me of I think it was in mid or late 2019 changes in the rule of promotion for cadre and responsibility system when they said like they had new clauses regarding nishu, like personal secretaries and stuff like this. Like if they're able to demonstrate that you've promoted people out of, I would say, personal relationship and stuff like this, well, they would demote you and they would demote people that have been promoted. But I was like, okay, and I understand the logic behind the fact that wanting to short circuit the Mishu system. I get it, but it didn't change. Like it's still ongoing right now, and we're talking about 2019, and this is still happening right now. So when I saw that, I was like, is this just like a deterrent for people that are really abusing the debt to create economic growth?
This is probably the case. This is probably the case of like the more inner China you move, the bigger problems it becomes.
Yeah, because there's nothing to do. There's no economic activities. Well, I mean, bro, like, okay, I'm giving you Gansu to manage tomorrow. Just produce economic growth. Boom, go. Like, I'm sorry, man.
What's
gonna
there?
Be tough.
There's
you see, you have nothing on top of your mind that could say. Like if I tell you go to Anhui, it's like okay, timber. You go to like Henan, Hunan, Hebei. Okay, there's steel, there's grains. Like you get some idea of what you could do in Tianjin. There's socks, manufacturing, ports, medicine, in Hebei also like where they produce vitamins and chemical compounds. But if I tell you, bro, you go to Gansu and you know like you, what can you do? And you go to Tibet, it's like, bro, boom, explode this economy, boom. What are you gonna do?
Bro, there's gotta be some shit to do there.
But you see
Like,
what I mean?
bro, you just double down on tourism and tea.
Yeah, but you'll never be able to like tax enough or generate revenue sufficiently so to invest in infrastructure for long-term growth. You'll never be able to do that.
Well, I mean, maybe they're just not smart enough to figure it out. I don't know. Bro, I've never been an official in Gansu. I'm sure there's got to be some shit to exploit.
Yeah, probably, and I'm sure that if anyone from Gansu listens to this, is gonna be pissed as hell that we just took a massive steamy one on Gansu. Like, we're sorry. Like that's it's not out of ignorance, but like just right off the bat, even Yunnan has more things going for it without even like the uh, sharing a border with Southeast Asia, like with all the smuggling and shit. Like, regardless of that, there's minerals, non-ferrous metals. There's more right off the bat. Like, you ask me Gansu, I have no clue what people are doing there.
Tourism.
Even in Qinghai, there's coal and oil. Like, you know what I mean?
Is there really nothing in Gansu?
I'm not quite sure. I'd really have to look hard. And to be fair, just by recollecting on a heavy,
oh man, I just saw a picture of Gansu. This place looks rough.
Oh, but it is rough. But like I say, like if you just recollect on like massive corruption cases, I don't quite remember massive Gansu corruption, except like pay for stamp and prostitution, like the usual stuff. You know what I mean? But not something industry systematic wise, like nothing like that. Like if you go to Inner Mongolia, bro, like bro, you go to Inner Mongolia, bro, it's absolutely insane. You go to Heilongjiang, boom, baby.
All right, so check it out. Check it out.
I'm listening. I'm listening. Feed me.
They got rare earth elements to mine.
Okay, that's not bad. That's good.
Okay. Unsurprisingly, tourism is the single largest sector.
Yeah, you see, that's bad. That's bad in times of pandemic.
Agriculture. Oh, never mind. I take that back. Gansu is one of the provinces with the smallest per capita area of arable land. Okay, never mind.
But you see, exactly.
Yeah, man. The Wikipedia article on this, the economy section is very short.
Yeah. And this is symptomatic of this growth through loan economic process. Because if there's nothing else to do, you need to put people to work regardless. You need to stimulate. And unfortunately, in some of these regions, and whether it is like Gansu, Guizhou, you need to make them work. And the go-to solution, as we've mentioned so many times before, is steel and cement. And steel and cement is public infrastructure. Public infrastructure comes through loans. That's it.
Yeah, this looks pretty rough, man.
We should go.
There's even nothing really interesting to see. I'm sorry if somebody is from Gansu listening to this, but your province kind of sucks.
You're so not cool.
Bro, listen, I come from a shitty province, so I get to shit on these shittier provinces. So,
well, I mean, to be fair, if you remove the rust out of the Northeast, it's still not too bad.
It's pretty bad, man. It's pretty bad. Like, as somebody from there, trust me, bro, it's pretty bad.
Okay, fair.
Like, if you take away like Harbin, really nothing else, man.
Well, I mean, there's Yanbian, bro, where the fun happens.
No, absolutely not. Okay,
no.
Let's see if we got anything else. Oh yeah, today the People's Bank of China has urged the government to abandon birth control policies. So it seems like this is becoming a really massive problem. The PBOC has to step out and say something.
Bro, if Yi Gang has to think about the general like family planning institution, we have really hit rock bottom. And I think his problem is not necessarily family planning per se, rather than pension and the care infrastructure that is going to be a massive disaster. And to be fair, it already is not really good. But if it continues like this, it's going to be a complete shit show. Like, you're going to have to pay for these people. Like, keep that in mind. We're talking about like at least 20 to 25% of aging population. Like, they're getting old, man, and somebody's going to have to foot the bill.
Isn't like
And
500 million elderly by like 20, I'm gonna say 2030?
I had the dates, but like the estimation varies. But yeah, it's coming to like 2035 or 2040 or 2050. Within the next 20 years would be a safe bet to say that if you don't curb that shit, this is going to be like a massive drain on the economy. And loan for development will not save you to generate enough taxation revenue to pay for pensions. Like, this will not save you this time.
But I think the general problem is that maybe I don't know if the party has thought about this. Maybe the problem is just people don't want to have kids because it's fucking expensive to have a kid there. Like, it's expensive, like, living expenses so fucking high in big cities.
Yeah, but if you don't have a proper taxation system to provide services, then I mean, everybody has to pay. It's as simple as that. And extracting resources at this point in time is complicated because nobody wants to pay for insurance. And when they went back to the rural areas, I think it's just a few years ago, to implement the new rural insurance system, and it was just like pennies. But to be fair, it didn't provide much. But people were very reluctant to contribute. I was like, yeah, I get it, because like because first, like, you never know if this is gonna work, if it's corruption. Like, I get it. I totally get it. And we're in the situation now that a universal, like a real universal income tax will have to be implemented upwards of like 10, 15, 20% to generate sufficient revenue to have money to pay for these people. Otherwise, I don't see how the party is going to pull that one off. Like, you want to say like people stay with their kids, like, yeah, bro, but like, you're strangling everyone at this point. Like, you're just putting your hands around somebody else's neck. You're just changing the neck. That's as simple as that.
Yeah, this is gonna be a problem. They really fucked themselves with the one child policy back in the day. Not that it was even that effective, but
no,
just terrible planning.
But it became like the thing, and now people are not willing, or like when they're considering it. Oh, bro, I've sat through these conversations. Oh man, these are sad conversations. Like, but we would like another one. It's like, and then they're stuffing with vitamins and treatments. Like, bro, like, when is this happening again? Like, in 5 or 6 years from now? And the dudes are usually, they look so defeated by this. It's so hard, man. You can see it in their face. They're so defeated. It's so good.
I mean, the problem is so fucking multifaceted, right? Because on one hand, all the opportunities are pretty much East Coast or South Coast, right? So without any hukou reform, you're fucked.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so everybody, you're funneling all the kids through a system whereby if you make it through this education system, you get rewarded massively. And if you don't make it through, you're not dead, but it's not great. But then the education system is mad corrupt because the teachers are underpaid, so they create separate classes, which if you don't sign up and pay for, you can't fucking pass. Like, the whole process has so many problems that, man, it's going to take like a generation, if not more, to fix.
You know, all of that remains a symptom of like one of the core element of the two hand one bag economy, the shortage. shortage created incentive to do all this shit. Because let's put it this way: if salaries were good, you wouldn't have a side track, like, or a secondary track in the university. You wouldn't have to bribe your way through. You wouldn't have to do none of that. But because the dude earns, and from let's say, if memory serves me right, and like top in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, you're looking at, like, I don't know, it's a few years ago, but like, okay, anyway, maybe around 7, or I'm gonna say up to 10,000 per month, and I'm gonna be super generous here because I still feel like it's between 5 and 7 most of the time. And I think that maybe in elite school they can go all the way to maybe 10, 11, but it's still not really good when you consider that you need to live in Beijing or you need to live in Shanghai with like Shrivan, like 100 grand. That's nothing. You cannot even buy your home. I'm not even sure you can rent properly.
No, you can. It's okay. The rent's not terrible, but there's no way you're buying on that salary.
Yeah, no. And of course, then you create incentive for that dude that he's frustrated as fuck to create new classes to get his own rent space and get some quiche. That's just like, he has no choice. You put him in this situation.
What was that other point I was going to make? And this goes back to the housing thing. Now this motherfucker has to take a loan to fucking put a down payment that's not allowed. So it's just an endless cycle of this shit repeating.
Yeah, because again, to be fair, he can't put a down payment because he earns peanuts.
And the regulations are terrible. So I don't know how much. What do you know off the back of your? Do you know how much a down payment is in China? Like the minimum down payment?
No, I don't, but I recall it was pretty high. It was more than 20-25% in some cases. Depends what you buy. Yeah. And it also depends on the company you buy from. There's a lot of variables, but like we're moving away from I would say, let me measure my words properly here. We're moving away from that first generation who dramatically benefited from the reform. So people that were born, let's say, 47, 48, 49, like up until 1955, 56, like the late 40s up until mid 50s, the people that were there when the real estate market was still like very easygoing, like you could buy more, and if your Danwei was your working unit was building buildings to accommodate the staff, you could buy that too for massively subsidized price. So these people ended up with multiple units over time, and they were able to sell or give away to children, stuff like this, or sell one to put a down payment for one for the kid. But now, like, you're away from that first time, that time A, when shit was cheaper. You're away. It's not even the same world anymore, and people are not able to do that anymore. Like, you ask your dad, like, bro, like, you have a quarter mil, like, or a half cool mil, so I can maybe buy a 30-footer, like, bro, your dad is like, if or things have become so expensive that even though he could help you out and sell for like a half cool mil or a mil, maybe a mil or even more, the new house will run you higher, and with the salary you have, it's going to take at least 20-25 years just to pay back for one. And you started with one. Keep that in mind. You started with one, you sell it, you buy another one, but you still haven't paid it, and it's going to take years to pay it back regardless. And you're stuck with your dad. like put it the way you want, but it's a like there. I think I've said that also many times, and even in class before. The generation that's now the new generation, they will never have it as good as their parents had it. And I think they have to realize that, and they have to digest it, because the early reform, like when you buy like 3, 4, 5 condos or land, or like, no, this is gone. This does not exist anymore. This is all gone.
And this goes back to education, right? Like, man, if you don't graduate from, there's probably 5 schools, I'd say, right? You got PKU, Tsinghua, Renda, uh,
交通 and Jeddah.
and Fudan. That's about
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Like if you're not from one of these schools, like man, your worth on the job market is so low. Like, oof, you
Oh,
might.
you can always be a bus driver.
Technically, that's a state employee, right? So you do
Yes, it
get
is.
pretty decent benefits.
I mean, you get some. At least you get some, because don't forget, most newcomers or new or entry jobs they have nothing whatsoever. Nothing. They pay for the generation that left in the early mid 2000. Like if you look at it this way, if you're 25 or 20 or entering the job market in China, man, do your prospects are dim. Oh man, they're dim. Oof.
But also, like, there's no way. I mean, the party doesn't seem too concerned about it, so that means nothing's really going to happen. And I think just before we close this out, there's like an obvious topic that we didn't really cover up. Like, people are going to be fucking talking about, oh, when you talk about Alibaba, when you talk about Alibaba, like,
Oh yeah.
okay, like, all right, they got the single largest fine in like Chinese regulatory history, like 2.75
Yep.
billion US fine, which is like peanuts for them. Um, for violating anti-monopoly rules. And then now the regulators are talking to all the major I think all the major e-commerce and technology firms. So
Yep.
your Meituan, JD, Tencent, all of them. There's nothing much more to say, and I know like Ant Financial has now become a holding company and is going to be overseen by the central bank, which it should have been in the fucking first place.
Well,
So
I mean, bro, people got to take their chances.
like, there's nothing much more to say. Like the story isn't finished, but the ending has been written. So
Yeah, and maybe a side point, like I mean, um, party committee, like the party committee inside Alibaba and Financial are now like trying to be more visible to show like they're being compliant with the party, which is pretty funny to be fair. Like it's very funny. Like, oh yeah, like the the committee has been held. Like yesterday, the meeting was there. Like wow, why do we care? But like okay, you had to say it. Like okay, we're good. And I think another side point would be like, okay, yes, the company is being dismantled slowly but surely, and the state has strongly insisted on Alibaba divesting his interest in entertainment and news. So expect to see more chunks of the company go away or to become maybe subsidiaries or at least slightly more separate entities, and some journals will simply be completely restructured, namely the South China Morning Post. So, for those of you who really liked it, and for like it's somewhat better take on things sometimes, I would assume that this is going to change massively between now and 2022. I wouldn't expect to see criticized piece or like a strong investigative report touching party topics anymore
to be fair, they
because
don't
you
really.
they don't.
Since Alibaba took them, they don't really. They publish like really lame opinion pieces, which are like, first of all, fucking
Yeah,
nobody reads
but
that shit.
but if you were to compare the South China Morning Post to the People's Daily or stuff like this, it's still much more adventurous.
Relatively, yeah, I guess. I guess. Yeah, we're
So
just
yeah, I expect that.
waiting to see who's going to take the SCMP, but I know where their office is actually. It's actually very close to me, and I think that shit's going to be gone because we're in a really expensive building. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but like I don't have any news on the potential buyer, but the all the sources point to like a strong Chinese interest in the media sector. So we could assume that maybe one of the large news group will just swallow the South China Morning Post within the upcoming months or weeks or something like that, and then it will just change dramatically. And I don't know if it will still be worth reading after that. To be fair, I don't know.
Hopefully, it's like one of the better in quotation marks news sources in China, like a
Like the Guangming Daily, bro.
I don't know what that is. Maybe like an Yitai
Oh yeah, I like your style. I like where you're going with this. Yeah,
or like
China's that'd be good.
China's Bloomberg. I don't remember what it's called in Chinese. It's called The Paper. Maybe one of the better ones, or something along those lines. Hopefully it's not fucking like the People's Daily or some other shit like that, because at that point, like, I'll just read the People's Daily instead of the SCMP. No reason.
Sure. But to be fair, like large media groups that could swallow it, I can see like Sina, Xinhua, or I think Guangming belongs to one of these or another large conglomerate. I forget. Yeah. So I don't know. I really don't know. And since Phoenix Media, I think, has been banned from these kinds of acquisition, I don't think you'd see a strong independent media in the South China Morning Post anymore. Well, I mean, independent to a certain degree.
Could it be like a local newspaper, like a Mingpao or a Takunpao? Or they're not big enough?
Which one is the? I always forget. Which one is the Apple? The Apple. Which one is it? Is it Pingguo? Is it the Pingguo?
Yeah, it's Apple Daily.
Yeah, you see, I like this one. I like this one. But do you think they would really allow the South China Morning Post to remain somewhat independent by allowing an acquisition through a Hong Kong-based journal?
Yeah, but we all know that Takunpao and Mingpao are affiliated with either Beijing or the liaison office, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Mingpao is medium. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm a very strong Apple supporter. The people want
their shit is so bad.
It blows my mind.
Bro, sometimes they paywall me. I'm like, really? You're gonna paywall me? Like, your fucking journalism is trash.
Well, it's funny. It's fun. I like to read it sometimes. It's good. I like it.
Oh man, maybe it'll be picked up by the Epoch, bro. The Epoch.
You see, this is still something I don't understand. Why is this allowed in Hong Kong? It's beyond me at this point. I don't understand.
Man, there's still Falun Gong people on the streets. I mean, but they're not really a thing anymore.
With the end of the 610 office, I feel like she doesn't really care about these people anymore.
Bro, this shit is so. They're so irrelevant in front of everything else that's happening.
Definitely
cares.
Definitely. And I don't think he wants to repeat the same mistake that Jiang Zemin did, because this followed him through up until this day. So I think that's fair, not to pile on more of organ harvesting on top of everything else.
But it's bro, there's nothing to pile on anymore. It's just they're nobody cares. They're a forgotten thing.
Unfortunately for you, oh no, okay, we won't name names, but I have to correct you here. Oh my god, I just remembered. You know that phone call we had with an MP? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Well, he cared. He cared.
Oh right, yeah.
About protecting Falun Gong. I was like, this phone call is not gonna go on well. And to be fair, it didn't really. It didn't really.
Yeah, but he's a.
Yeah, never mind.
Let's good. I was gonna say something unsavory. I have stopped myself. Okay.
It doesn't worth it. It doesn't worth it.
All right, I think that's about it.
Yeah, for now. Maybe we'll have more things in 2 or 3 weeks, because the beginning of the month is usually very slow, and going on and rambling about political reshuffling sometimes is a bit too heavy if you don't know who is who and what I'm talking about specifically.
We can do a separate episode on other shit. But anyways,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
gonna be it for mid March to mid April. We'll
Yep.
see. We'll see to what extent we'll need to do one at the end of April, but
Yeah.
yeah, not much happening in March. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it.
Well, ciao.
Ciao.